All right, everyone, welcome to the Real Estate Game Changer Show. I'm your host, Mike McKay, based in the Jacksonville, Florida market. And each and every week, we dive deep with guests all over the country who are changing the game of real estate. And this is a live show, so if you have any questions, please put them in the comments on whatever platform you're on for our guest to answer. And this week, our guest is Robbie Norris, and he's in the Tennessee market. Welcome to the show, Robbie.
Good to be here. Good to see you
Awesome.
again.
Likewise, man. Likewise. Um, so I think what would be helpful just to kick the show off is if you could kind of tell people about how you got involved in real estate, and maybe you can even talk a little bit about what you were doing before you got involved in real estate.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Rob Norris. I'm out of Nashville, Tennessee. I've lived here, about 7 years now, which seems crazy. Anyway, a little bit about how I got into real estate. So I out of high school, I went to film school, and I started editing videos with my friends, and eventually fell into photography. I was working as a photographer for a long time. My my friend.
Oh, looks like we lost him. I'm sure he'll be back in a second. Hey,
Kept
you're back.
disconnecting. Am I there now?
Yep, you're back. You just said my friend and it cut off. So,
I don't know why this says using significant energy on this browser.
huh.
Hopefully it doesn't cut out again.
Yeah, let's roll. It's a
Yeah,
live show. It
so
happens all the time. So.
yeah, so I moved to Nashville for a job on the road with a country act, and I toured all over the world for 5 years, and that was a great time in my life. I'm really grateful to have had that opportunity, and during that time, getting more and more work. I slowly built up, and I started a creative agency with one of my friends, and we did a bunch of music videos and content for artists around town. Sort of long story short, whenever the pandemic hit, all of that sort of came to an end. At least for the time being. And previously to that, I had been wanting to get off the road and wanting to, maybe find a different industry to enter, thinking long term. And so whenever that happened, it was sort of the perfect opportunity for me to dive into real estate. So I started text marketing, and I think it was like March 2020, and I don't think I did my first deal until the end of that year. But yeah, that's how I sort of got into it. So
Cool. So you started March 2020, did your first deal by the end of that year, but you really scaled up pretty fast after you got that first deal.
yeah, so when I started out, I was texting. I think I was sending like 100 texts a day, maybe.
Hmm.
And at this point, I had like a lot of credit card debt, and didn't have much cash to throw around into marketing. So that's sort of why I chose texting, because it's affordable. And I'm going through. I'm texting consistently. I'm talking to people, but I wasn't getting a deal. And it's like the middle of the summer, and I'm starting to talk to people and be like, any idea why I'm not getting a deal? Because I'm seeing, my other friends who are doing it, and it's working out. And I realized that I just wasn't sending enough text messages, and it seemed like a stupid, like simple thing, but it's a pretty important part of the equation.
Yeah.
So I 10x how many messages I was sending, and I was talking to a lot more people, and talking with people who actually had deals. So that sort of started my building my pipeline, and a few months later, I ended up getting some under contract, and it sort of just snowballed from there. After I closed my first wholesale deal, obviously, we talk about like proof of concept or whatnot. It's in my story, that was very true. Just like sort of proved to myself that this is a real thing, and you can do this to make money, and so I put more money into texting and marketing, and just continued to snowball. My friend who I went to film school with, I brought him on in February of 2021, and that was a big part of us being able to scale as well. I posted something on social media, and I think he saw it one day, and he was working out in California, and his job was coming to an end out there, and he said, "Hey, this looks like something I might be interested in. Would I be able to work remote or something?" And so I was like, "Listen, like, fly out here. I'll take you through my day to day, and if it's something you actually want to pursue, then we can talk further." And so he came out, and I think while he was out here, we got like 2 deals under contract the week he was out here, and so he was like, "Wow, this is crazy." And he went back, and the plan was that he was going to work out there for a while and work remotely. About a week after that, I was like, "Yeah, like, I really need somebody here in the trenches with me, day to day." And so he's like, "All right, I'll move out." And so, like, long story short, he moved out here, and he's right across the hall from me right now, and we're still working together. It's been great. So at that point, this is February 2022 or 2021. I'm basically training him, cloning myself, what I was doing to him, and he started taking over all the texting, and that allowed me to move on to being more involved with the dispo side, and finding better buyers to sort of maximize our spreads on these deals. So that's sort of how it unfolded, and now today there's 5 of us total, and we're maybe looking to add a few more, so it's going great.
Cool. And you really ramped up the volume on the amount of deals that you did. I think in 2021, you said, I think, how many did you end up doing in that year?
I want to say around 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like allowed you to go from, previous year just doing, 1 or 2 to 40 deals in a pretty short period of time? Okay.
I'd say it was honestly like, I'd love to sit here and say, I'm a genius or whatnot, but I think a lot of it had to do with the market. And, I started marketing to the surrounding counties first instead of Nashville. And so we would be picking up, land, or, really good deals on rentals outside of Nashville. And there's a big investor pool of, investors that are buying out there. So, we would be locking them up pretty cheap, and we were, because the market just was so crazy hot, we'd be able to sell them for close to retail. So I think that was a big factor in us being able to, scale faster.
So was there less competition in those surrounding counties in terms of wholesalers reaching out to these people? Is that why you chose to go there?
Yeah, at least in my head, that's what I thought. Because I didn't even start marketing to Davidson County, which is Nashville,
Hmm.
until about a year ago. So
Okay.
yeah, but it's weird, how the market has changed so much. Now most of our deals are actually in Nashville, and um, the surrounding counties aren't where we're finding them so much anymore. So
Interesting. And did you pretty much stick with just text message marketing all through 2021 or 2022? I forget what year it was you started.
yeah, I'd say 2021 was pretty much all texting. Maybe towards the end of the year, I think I started PPC. Um, but yeah, I I haven't, cold calling in house and text blasting have just been what has worked for us. And
Hmm.
I've tried PPC, and I'm about to revisit it once we figure out what's going on, with the market a little bit more, or once we start doing deals more steadily. But
Hmm.
um, I think we ran through like 20 grand of PPC and didn't get a deal. Um,
Mm.
Direct mail, actually, I cut off last month, and our marketing just ended at the end of January, and we probably spent a similar amount of money. One deal I bought that I'm gonna flip to move into my as a personal house from it, and then I ironically didn't get any other deal until after I cut the marketing off, and it was literally like at the end of January from one of our last mailers, and it'll end up being like a $40,000 deal, and it'll cover
Yeah.
all of it. So uh, maybe I just keep going with it. I think that's what everybody says, but just because I'm so new to real estate, I'm trying to make sure I don't you know go bankrupt on my second year here. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And then 2022, I think you had mentioned offline that you had ramped up the volume even more. I think you were at roughly how many deals in 2022?
Um, I'd say I think it's around 50.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but we started texting more, and we started cold calling more. So I think our spreads were probably a little bit bigger. We also ran through a big portfolio of homes in 2022, which was really helpful. Um, So yeah, 2022 is when I started. We did some of the PPC, and then yeah, cold calling, direct mail, and I also started radio ads,
Mm.
which I had to pull for. It's a long story, but my lawyer suggested I pull them for the time being.
Mhm.
So we'll revisit that at some point, but yeah.
Gotcha. And you mentioned you said you did cold calling in house. So do you mean like in your office, like in the US, or do you mean just not hiring an outside agency to do that for you?
Yeah, I have two acquisition agents that will cold call in house. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And we had four VAs calling at one point. Um,
Mhm.
and we trained them pretty well, but they were hitting our numbers, like it was like a few $1,000s a day, but we just weren't getting any deals from that. Nashville is it's an odd market. We were both in
Mhm.
Steve Trang's thing, like that whole script that doesn't work in Nashville. Like that's not a thing in Nashville.
Huh.
Like the whole salesy thing, at least that's not how we talk to sellers. Um, I've used that in other markets, like we were in Chattanooga and Charlotte, and it seems to get like response there, but here in Nashville, I don't know. It's people want top dollar for their properties, and they know what their properties are worth, and it's a lot harder to find motivation here, for sure.
Mm. So how have you guys changed your approach for the Nashville market versus some of those other markets where you kind of use that type of scripting?
Yeah, it's more of just a real conversation. Just, you know, hey, I drove by your property at 123 Main Street. Did you have any interest in selling that property?
Hmm.
Um, and then from there, we'll go through a series of scripts with them, depending on what they say, and yeah, but yeah, it's more just yeah, I guess just more of a real conversation rather than selling something, I guess. But
Yeah. So what do you feel is like the profile of the seller? Like what makes someone sell to an investor in Nashville if they're kind of all fit within the box that you told about? Like why would they go with, someone like you or someone like me in that market?
um, I think it's just probably easier a lot of the times. Um, I tell people a lot, like most of my deals are not motivated sellers.
Interesting.
Yeah. Um, we just started a new program, uh, like a foreclosure system that we're implementing. So hopefully we'll start to see people with more motivation. But yeah, most of what I see is people who this is what they want for their house, and we're able to make that work, and either take it down and flip it or dispo it for a wholesale fee. Um, but and I don't want to be the guy that like says, oh, it's my market or whatnot. I mean, obviously we're doing deals and making a lot of money, but like,
Hmm.
um, you know, Nashville, Middle Tennessee, I hear it consistently from people like Brandon Bateman and Bateman Collective. He runs PPC. I
Hmm.
hear it from other mentors that have tried to enter this market. Is just it's an odd market for sure.
Hmm.
So um, actually, because of that, we're trying to identify maybe another one to move into. But yeah, that's sort of where we're at.
Got it. So you said it sounds like you take some of these properties down yourself and do the construction and flip them.
Yeah, we were for a while. We're not flipping anything right now. I don't think. We just relax to rent and hold for about a year. Um, but it's on a commercial lot, so we'll eventually develop that. Um, but not so much flipping anymore. We were into it for a bit. Had some really good deals, and then had like one bad deal that turned me off from flipping a little bit. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely learned a lot and like had some good ones in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the going forward, sort of pivoting into the commercial world. Um,
Hmm.
Still we're gonna keep a easy offer, marketing to residential and continue wholesaling.
Hmm.
But as far as like purchasing, we're trying to purchase commercial assets and get into that world. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know you mentioned offline. I think you purchased a 100-unit apartment building not too long ago.
yeah, it's been about a month and a half. We did that deal. It was actually my my partner on the deal, Ronnie, who we've done a bunch of deals together. So we've
Hmm.
sort of done the business dating thing, and we felt comfortable jumping in on this together. Um, and he found this deal through an email blast, which I've never marketed with email. It's something we're trying to build out for that foreclosure thing, but
Hmm.
um, he was able to get in contact with the seller's son, and they put us in touch with the seller, and this guy's like 97 years old, and he has like 5 kids, and they've all been part of helping to manage this property,
Hmm.
and nobody wants to take it over. Everybody just wants to be done with it, and so Murfreesboro. I'm not sure if you know much about the market. It's one of the fastest growing cities in America.
Hmm.
Um, MTSU is in Murfreesboro, which is the biggest university in Tennessee, and it's just a really great market, especially for rentals. And so we went down there. It's about 35 minutes south of Nashville, and met with this seller a bunch of times, and finally came to some terms that worked for both of us, and I think we got a good deal. Um, we overpaid a little bit, but because it was seller finance, it totally makes sense.
Hmm.
And yeah, so we've never done anything, me or my partner Ronnie, anything this big, but you know, uh, we think we can figure it out, and we're sort of jumping in and hoping for the best. So um, yeah, so it's exciting, and
Yeah.
it's been a learning experience. It's been a lot of putting out fires. Whenever we got the deal, we were saying, well, we should just self manage it, and create a management company eventually. Um, and so we did that, and that's been a mistake. So we're about to bring on a management company.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it's been very great learning experience. But sort of faking it till you make it, I guess. We'll figure it out. But
Yeah.
you know, Ronnie brought that deal to me sort of accidentally. We were talking about another deal one day on the phone, and wrapping up the phone call, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm heading down to Murfreesboro. I have this guy or this property under contract, and this one equity guy wants to buy it from me." And I was like, "Oh, what's the deal?" And he starts telling me about it, and I'm just like, "Man, you gotta you gotta figure out how to buy that property. Like, don't wholesale that.
Yeah.
That's life changing for you and your kids and your family. Like, figure out how to buy that. You don't have to wholesale anymore or whatnot." And so I think that sort of stuck with him. I forgot about it, and then like 2 weeks later, he came back. He's like, "Man, if what you said to me sort of stuck with me. Like, if I want to buy it, and if I want you to be my partner." And I was just like, "All right, let's do it. That'd be
Wow.
awesome." So here we are, and just trying to figure it out. But yeah, I'm very excited about it. So
That's cool, man. Was it one of those scenarios where like a lot of the units aren't rented and they need to be renovated and you kind of build value that way, or what's kind of the play with this property?
yeah, so it's actually, I think, so technically there's 94 units,
Hmm.
and there was like only 2 vacant units in the whole complex. And that was pretty crazy. There's been people living there for 20 years, still paying like $400 a month. And Murfreesboro rent is comparable somewhat to Nashville rent. Like, that's like more than 50% under market. So, yeah, most of the units need to be, turned
Hmm.
between 5 and 12 grand of work per unit.
Hmm.
Um, but we got really lucky. This place, it's situated over 11 acres, and there's about 8 different buildings, or sorry, 20 different buildings,
Hmm.
and they're all brick on slab. And we walk some pretty bad houses, right? We see all the cracking and all that. not on one unit of these. There's no foundation issues, no cracking of any sort. So they're in great shape. Um, it's just the insides need to be fixed up a little bit. So um, right now we closed on it, and we're sort of turning them as they become vacant. So as somebody moves out, we turn the unit and re-rent it.
Mhm.
But we're looking to raise some capital to sort of expedite that process. So we're in the process of interviewing some banks, and we're open to equity, selling some equity as well. If you know anybody, or if anybody out there listening knows of anyone that might be interested, but we're open to any options. But right now it cash flows after our debt service probably about 22 grand a month, and
Wow.
so let's say around 7 to 10K a unit. You can't you can't turn too many units with that cash flow.
Mhm.
We're probably looking to raise some money and get it done quicker rather than you know it taking 5 or 6 years. So
Yeah,
yeah,
gotcha. Um, and you bought it entirely on seller finance? There was no bank involved in the initial transaction?
yeah, no bank involved. We had to bring about 600 grand to closing,
Mhm.
but it was a 40-year note. So year one is 2% interest. Year two is 3% interest, and then year 3 through 10 is 4% interest only. And then the last 30 years of the note is a 30-year AM. So at 4%. Um,
Wow. I mean, those are pretty good debt rates regardless. So,
yeah, yeah. So, um, one big obstacle that we've recently overcome is that, the seller has said that he'll subordinate the first position and take a second so that we could get a bank loan easily. So, you
wow.
know,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the plan here. I've been on the phone all day with some banks, but if we can make that work and get a property management company in place that can also manage some rehabs, then I think we'll be golden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's a hard thing to get to, allow the seller to, or the previous seller to allow you to put a, first position lien in front of his to like accelerate that process. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. We're excited. So,
What's your
but
long-term
yeah,
play with that building?
probably hold it forever. Yeah.
Yeah. So once you finish this one, are you hooked on the multifamily?
Yeah, I think so. Um, actually, I think maybe it was a coincidence, or if you believe in God, maybe it was a God thing. But this deal we were working on actually with Ronnie, who's my partner on this
Hmm.
apartment complex, we have this wholesale deal, and it's like a $5,000 wholesale fee. It's a really small deal, and it's probably been the biggest headache of a deal that I've ever had to deal with. And so, that just goes to say, obviously they say, some of the smallest deals are the hardest deals.
Yeah.
So that's like the perfect example of that. But all that to say, flipping a house, or um, even like doing, a bunch of wholesale deals, sometimes, it's the same amount of work to, underwrite and purchase a bigger multifamily deal. Um, same amount of time spent. So
Hmm.
that's sort of the trajectory I see myself going, and um, digging into how to market for that kind of property. And
Yeah, so you were saying how to market for that kind of property.
yeah,
Um, so you mentioned earlier that that your partner Ronnie got this deal from an email blast. So is that like he blasted out like this was like a mass thing that he did, or he was like, how did that work?
Yeah, I think it was like 1,000 emails or something. But he targeted it to. Um, it was so funny enough. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it was a residential list,
Really?
and the reason why, and the reason why, I actually think why this property hasn't been bought yet is because when you're pulling a commercial list, this property won't show up because they're actually all individual condos. So
Oh,
that's that's why it doesn't show up as commercial. So that's actually one interesting thing about this deal is you could sell these off individually. You know, we've also thought about instead of raising money, we could sell off 20 condos or something. So
mhm.
it's interesting.
That is really interesting. Was the seller you purchased it from, did they develop this initially with that intent to sell them off, or?
I don't know what his intent was. I think like I said, he's 97. He still owns, I think, pretty much everything he had developed. But he owns a lot of commercial down there in Murfreesboro, and I mean, it's crazy. I went down there the other day, and he's like talking about these 90 lots that he has in Murfreesboro, and how he's going to get to it in a couple years and develop it in a couple years. And I'm, dude, you're not going to be around in a couple years,
Yeah, 90, 97.
man. But I respect it. I respect. I'll probably
Yeah,
never stop working. So
yeah. He's planning a real estate development deal at
yeah,
97 is very optimistic.
yeah. So that's funny.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Cool. And then how involved are you currently in the day-to-day operations of your wholesale business?
So I am essentially the dispo of my wholesale operation. So um, these days it doesn't take as much of my time because we're not doing as many deals. But
Mhm,
yeah, I think we're doing like maybe four a month right now. Um,
mhm.
and we've had a couple good ones lately. But yeah, I'm doing the dispo. And I also oversee just my acquisitions and making sure that they're doing what they need to do to bring in enough leads and whatnot. So um, yeah.
So that's maybe a good thing to talk about because obviously dispositions last year was a very easy thing. You got a property and everyone wanted to buy it. And I know at least in Jacksonville, it's obviously slowed down quite a bit on the buyer side. What have you noticed in the Tennessee market in terms of dispositions?
Yeah, it's I've noticed that even if you have a great deal, it's sometimes hard to sell it still.
Mm,
Um, so a couple of those I bought because I was like, this is crazy. I'm not going to let this deal go.
mm,
Um, so by the time I flipped it, I had like, I just did like a rental grade flip on the two I'm thinking of. And by the time it was done, I had like an investor buyer for it. So we still, were able to move it and made a good amount of money. But yeah, I think it's just harder to sell deals, and that makes wholesaling harder. And on the acquisition side, at least here, um, we're not seeing any signs of like sellers, coming down in price. It's still, everybody is still sort of back in that market
mm.
from a year ago. Um, so maybe it takes, 6 more months to realize we're not in that market anymore. But yeah, and as far as retail, things are sitting on the market, a lot longer. Um, and yeah, what have you guys noticed out there in Jacksonville? What's it been like?
It was pretty brutal the few last few months of last year, call it October to December. Kind of what you were talking about, that price expectation gap. Really on the buy side I mean, obviously if you had stuff on the market, prices went down as well. I don't think we had much on the market at that time, so we were fortunate about that. But Um, yeah, it was just this huge price gaps between what sellers expected and what we would be able to offer, even for houses that were a wreck. Um,
Yeah.
and then we started in early to mid January seeing a pretty big shift in the mindset and of the sellers we were talking to, where they were kind of openly acknowledging that the market wasn't what it was 6 months ago, and they realize that they're going to have to accept less. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. Not to say all sellers are like that, but I think the mindset has definitely shifted at least a fairly significant amount, for just
Yeah.
from the conversations I'm having on the phone.
Yeah. That's good.
Obviously, not at the
Well,
volume we were doing, you know, March of last year, April of last year, but uh, I mean, it was really bad in October to December, man. I won't lie. We were like
yeah.
squeaking out like a contract a month with like
Yeah.
huge effort to get one.
Yeah. Tough.
So, yeah.
What's your sentiment on what's your sentiment on the market in the next 6 to 12 months, locally in Jacksonville, and then also nationwide.
I don't pay too much attention to the nationwide stuff, so I probably can't speak to that. I think locally in Jacksonville, um, it's just more stabilized and more predictable. I don't think it's going back up. Maybe it'll go down a little bit or stay the same, but it's not like, oh, I don't see, like, if you look at kind of the inventory levels and the absorption rate, there's not going to be like these wild swings where if you thought you were going to make 50 grand on a flip, now you're bringing 10 grand to the closing table, which I think is good, right? I'd rather predictability. I don't need massive appreciation like we had last year. I just would like to know what the property would be worth after I buy it.
Yeah, that's why I'm not really buying anything unless I know it's a crazy deal. Because yeah, but I think in Nashville here we're probably insulated enough that even if there's a larger downturn, um, I think we'll be all right. I just don't like this like limbo phase that we're in,
Yeah.
where you don't know what's going on. So I'd rather let's take a turn one way or the other and get back to work.
Yeah. I know
Yeah.
how you feel. That was exactly how we felt in October, November, December of
Yeah.
last year. And now we're back
So
to
it's picked up a lot.
it has, and we've started just I mean, we've just started closing on more stuff and just listing it as is on the MLS. And instead of just trying to, we've never been amazing at off-market dispositions. It's just not something we ever took the time to get great at.
Okay.
So we find like if it's a good deal, we just buy it, put it back on the MLS, and it's just a lot easier to get a much significantly higher price.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't do that with everything because you've got capital constraints and all that. Um,
Sure.
but that's been something that's been working for us if we're confident. If I'm like, yeah, this is a good deal, like I'm definitely not losing money. Like no way in hell I'm going to lose money if I buy this. I'm like, all right, let's just buy it, clean it out, and put it back on the market.
Yeah.
The same people will actually bid more when it's on the MLS.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's a
Crazy.
sense of competition, right?
Yeah.
And it's you know you go to the house and everyone's walking through at the same time, or see a bunch of
Yeah.
people using the lockbox, and you're like, oh, okay, I gotta like actually throw out a real price here. So, but I
Exactly.
also not very good at disposition, so um, off market. So maybe you could talk about that a little bit actually, because you really took over the dispositions role in your business. What do what do you find that's been working well for you on the disposition side?
Well, I guess like I've found that doing it right is, um, is time consuming. Like going out and like physically meeting with people, like buyers, especially new investors, has been a great way that we've built that over time. Um, but during this this downturn, we have actually utilized New Western, um,
Hmm.
and I know there's like, um, and I'm not a New Western flag waver at all. I know there's a lot of things that I don't like about what they do, um,
Hmm.
but I think there's a lot of opportunity there that people don't realize. Where if you have a deal that you can't sell, and it's all about finding the right person there. Um, so my partner Ronnie is actually he's the one that works in New Western. He's dispoed a bunch for me there, but um, a lot of those guys, their model is they're not thinking about a wholesale deal as far as like the spread. They're thinking about the number of deals that they can do, right?
Hmm.
So Ronnie doesn't. I tell him what I want for the property, and as long as it works for him and he can sell it for 10 grand over what I have it under contract for, then he takes the deal. Um, so we try to dispose ourselves first, and most times we can, but sometimes if it's a more complicated deal, it might be easier to just give to New Western. But they've been a great resource for us and made us a bunch of money, and they just have you know it's the way they dispo is it just gets seen by so many people, and you have agents at New Western who are physically talking to all the buyers that can just it would be hard to do that for one person at a company, so
Hmm.
um, but yeah, it's crazy. I didn't know how big New Western was, but they're worth more than Open Door and Zillow combined.
Really? I
Yeah,
didn't know that. Jeez.
yeah, crazy.
I had no idea. I thought they were just kind of like a small operation of like, not small, but like, 40, 50 guys just working.
No, they
That's
do.
wild.
They do about 20,000 wholesale deals a month. I don't know what the stat is now, but
Wow. Okay. Wow.
yeah,
I didn't know that at all. Jeez.
yeah,
That's wild, man.
yeah,
That's wild.
yeah.
So they actually make money on like Open Door?
I don't. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, their model's not like Open Door. Like they're still getting them at discounts,
Yeah.
um, and wholesaling them off market. But
Yeah.
yeah, they we've enjoyed working with them. But yeah, obviously, like I don't like. I wouldn't work with anybody from there for the longest time because you put it under contract with them and they don't tell you that they're from New Western, and then 15 people show up to a property and that whole thing, but
Ah,
um,
yeah.
yeah.
What uh what else have you changed on the disposition side, since kind of the market's shifted?
Um, what else have we changed on the dispo side since the market has shifted? You just gotta dig in more and think about. So like sometimes I won't even send a deal out to my list now. I think of I have like 10 people that I have in mind that I'm like I know this guy's gonna buy this deal, and I just go right to him. Um,
Hmm.
I'm just not. I'm not seeing the bidding back and forth anyway. And if I have a solid buyer who I know is going to buy this deal, and I did a deal with him last week, why wouldn't I just take this one to him and make my fee and move on to the next? So I think that's probably one thing that sort of shortens the dispo process. So which is key, during this time, like let's get them moved as fast as we can,
Hmm.
um, since there are fewer deals. But that's probably the main thing. Um, Uh, taking, Matterport. We do Matterport for every property. Um, Photos, put them all on a drive labeled with the address, and so it's just very easy for when I text or email someone, you can easily, there's the address, here's the Matterport, and just easy for them to analyze real quick as a flip.
Yeah. We've considered doing the Matterport thing actually. Have you found that's made a fairly significant impact?
I think so, yeah. It's great and it's easy. I mean, I just have my acquisition agent take it there, and it's like it takes 8 minutes to do, and then also the great thing is we do it for every property. So if you end up flipping that property, you don't even have to go back to the property. You can then start going through it and be like, okay, yeah, we need to do this, this, and this, and it's
Hmm.
just yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So you have the camera like in-house. It's something you do in-house.
Yeah, we when we first started doing it, we were hiring it out, and the guy was charging like $125, and so we were like, well, we'll just buy one of these and do it ourselves. So yeah, that's what we do now.
Yeah. Are you running in-person appointments at these properties or?
Um, yes, when we can, but I'm trying to think. So what we have on the board now is like 4 deals, and like only one of those, one person was in an in-person appointment. We locked it up. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious if the process was like make the deal, sign the contract, and hey, let me grab my Matterport. I'll be right back. Like,
Pretty
like
much, yeah.
super
I mean,
easy.
if
Yeah.
yeah, it's first and foremost, it's get it under contract, and then uh, after that, it's like, um, you mind if I go and take some photos around here and just do a scan of the house, or if that's a problem, we can come back and do it another day. But
Hmm.
yeah, we usually just try and do it right then and there.
Yeah. Have you found that you get a lot of buyers making more sight unseen offers since you've implemented the Matterport?
Yes, when the market was hot, we probably started doing the Matterport like April last year, and it was still a hot market. And yes, we noticed more sight unseen offers. We don't really get sight unseen offers too much anymore
Yeah.
during this time. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess may be helpful too. I mean, do you feel like it weeds out the people who, they look at it and they're like, not for me, and they would have gone there and kind of wasted the time, or is
Yeah,
it
I think
helpful
so.
in that
Yeah,
sense?
it will
Or
probably save some time on the phone as well, or yeah, even setting up appointments to go see it, because some people don't like looking at photos, and then some people don't like looking at Matterports. But at least you have the option.
yeah,
It's just another perspective. So yeah. I mean, I think it's always good to get eyes on the property, but I mean, you can besides like how the floors feel and stuff. You can get a pretty good sense of what kind of work you're going to need to do by that Matterport. So
yeah, 100%. And what have you changed, if anything, on the acquisition side since the market shift?
um, I would say cold calling more, um, and just we implemented another arm, the foreclosure system that I was talking to you about, but that's probably all we've changed. Maybe I need to change something. Maybe I should think about that. But yeah.
And that foreclosure thing, you haven't launched that yet. You said that's a new kind of initiative.
Yeah, we have it all in place. I don't know. I don't know if you use left main, but we have like a cadence in there where it's like a 30-day process. So a VA will scrape daily of new ones that come in and put it into left main. It'll pop up and be assigned to an acquisition agent, and then they'll get that task or notification. And day one is like call them, or call them, text them. Day two is go knock the door and leave a door tag. There's a bunch more steps. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, we're almost done with it, but next week we'll probably start marketing that first list. So I'll keep
Cool.
you posted on how it goes.
Yeah, let me know. Be interested to hear.
Do
Um,
you close on a lot of foreclosures?
we've done them kind of by chance before
Okay.
coming across them, and we hit pre-foreclosures. In Florida, the foreclosure process takes a really long time. So in
That
Florida, the
it cuts
yeah.
off like I forget about it, like just forget about it, and then it cuts off.
So in Florida, the foreclosure process takes a long time. So uh, there's a little bit less urgency. I have a buddy in Texas who was Bryson, who was on this podcast, and they're the I don't know how it is in Tennessee, but in Texas, it's like a 55-day process. So there's a lot more urgency and like a lot more like they can't list like here if you're in pre-foreclosure, you got like plenty of time to list it and do whatever as long as it's in decent shape. Not that we don't buy some of those, but there's a little less like, oh my God, like foreclosure's happening in a month. Like I got to get, you kind of have ignored the signs for quite a long time. Is it,
Yeah.
how long does it take in Tennessee for the process?
I believe it's a 60-day process.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously we can step in and buy it at any point during that time.
Yeah. You may want to check out that episode where there's like one of my first episodes here where Bryson Whitley was on. And I mean, that's basically what he does is
Okay.
foreclosures in San Antonio. And he talks about his whole process, start to finish. And like all the steps along the way. And I think 90% of his deals are from foreclosures.
Okay. Awesome. I'll
Oh,
check that out.
cool, man. Well, we're close to time here. I always like to end the show with two questions. The first one's a little fun, which is what is the craziest or most uncomfortable situation that you've ever experienced with a seller?
Um, so I actually have it's pretty crazy. It's like it should be, and maybe it will be one day, a Netflix documentary, like like crime show. It's crazy. But we had this portfolio we were working through over the summer, and without going into too much detail, the seller was pretty old, and there was a caretaker who was hired uh, to help him. And you know what? I don't even know if I can. Basically, some really shady stuff went on, and there's a current investigation going on. And
Wow.
basically, he fell down the steps and died. And he went to the hospital and died that day, but he died from having fallen down the steps. And so it's just like he, we closed on like I think 12 of his properties, and there was one property left that we had to close on, and he died before we closed on that property. But the whole story is just very sad and crazy. Like some people might be going to jail. We'll see.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
That's wild.
but yeah,
Um, cool. Well, not cool, actually. But
yeah.
um, so last question I always have is, if you could go back in time, give yourself one piece of advice, back to 2020 when you were looking for that first deal, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
It would just be, going back to how I wasn't texting enough people. I think that, but um, just overall, maybe the um, what's it called? Like imperfect, like massive imperfect action. Um, so I'd say just talking to more people and just being relentless on getting that first deal. I mean, I just didn't know. I had to talk to some more people, but I think that's probably it. Just getting in front of more sellers and getting stuff under contract. So
Cool. A good piece of advice. So Robbie, if people want to reach out to you, whether they're in a Tennessee market or maybe they're interested in the kind of the multifamily deal that you were talking about or future multifamily deals, how would they go about reaching out to you?
yeah, you can email me. My email is rob at easyexit.com. My Instagram is at Robbie Norris, ROBBIENORRIS, and those are probably the two best ways to get in touch with me. But if anybody's ever coming out this way, I'd love to meet up. If you ever have a deal out this way, we're happy to take a look at it. If it's multifamily, we'll buy it, and yeah, um, love to get in touch.
Cool, man. Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show. This is great.
All right, appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.